Hi again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Alumni Chats, a weekly podcast featuring alumni from the Department of Broadcasting and Journalism here at Western Illinois University. My name is Buzz Hoon, and I'm the host of the podcast. Today, I'm talking with Bryan Moore, a graduate of 2006, I believe, right, Bryan?
That's correct.
Great. So, Bryan, won't you kind of tell us where you are and what's going on in your life?
Well, thanks, Buzz, for inviting me to come on. But right now, I'm the Director of Athletics at Eureka College. Eureka is a Division III NCAA school in between Peoria and Bloomington. A very small, private liberal arts school in a conference based out of St. Louis. And I have been at Eureka in some capacity for the better part of the last 12 years. Started off at Eureka in 2009 as sports information director. And what that means is I'm basically handling all PR for athletics, press releases, media requests, statistics, website, etc. In 2016, I took on a larger role in the media relations office where I then oversaw media for all of the campus, including athletics. And then in the summer of 2018, my predecessor, my former boss, moved on to a different position at a small school in West Virginia. And I took his place. And I was hired officially in November of 2018. This is now my third year overseeing athletics at Eureka. And it's great. It's a little different than what I envisioned 15 years ago. But being in the sports world and being around college athletics and working with student athletes and coaches and staff is awesome. And I love it. And I know that we're all a little on a different wavelength now because of COVID and everything has been very strange and unique this year, but it's still just been an amazing experience to get from point A to point B at Eureka.
That's awesome. And I tell you, when you were a student over 15 years ago or so, my kids were both young and when we were doing all these sports productions throughout the week and everything, and now you have a couple of youngsters.
I do. I have two sons. Bennett is 5. He graduated from preschool last week.
Nice.
And Charlie is 2. And he goes 100 miles an hour at all times. They're both great kids. I've been married to my wife, Laura, since 2012. She's also from Central Illinois. She is a high school math teacher at my alma mater, East Peoria. And we live in East Peoria, and we are, like I said, 100 miles an hour, very fast paced. She actually just wrapped up her tenure as the volleyball coach at East Peoria. She's been a high school volleyball coach for the last 11 years. So we're busy, and our kids are great. My wife is great. We love it. So it's a new era in life for sure.
So as you said, you were from the East Peoria area. Yep. And when you came to WIU, at some point, because I remember my first exposure to Bryan Moore, and I'll say this, when I met you and I heard you, I thought you were one of the first people I ever said, now that young man has some talent. that young man has the ability to communicate. So did you have that as a desire? Is that something you always wanted to do, is to do some announcing at back in the day?
Yes. In short, yes. My whole life, my biggest passion has been sports, watching sports, playing sports. Yeah. When you're around it so much, I always had this just vision for what it should be like. So when I played JFL, Junior Football League in East Peoria, my whole childhood from like age 9 until I got to high school. And the older kids would play on Sundays and the younger kids would play on Saturdays. My brother's a couple years older than me. So I would play on Sunday and I'd go to his games on Saturday. And one day I had to have been in 6th or 7th grade. And one day there was no PA announcer. And I volunteered to go up there and do it. And I'd been to enough events, even at that age, to where I just knew what it was supposed to sound like. And I did my best to emulate even just a PA announcer at a Pop Warner football game. And I enjoyed it. And I was invited back. And I got to do more PA type stuff when I was a high school student for girls basketball and some other sports. And, it just, I enjoyed being in the center of it. I thought that it was something that I could do. I don't know if anybody ever made a career out of being a PA announcer, but, getting to Western, it was almost just kind of dumb luck on my part. I will say 20 years ago when I was a high school senior, I probably didn't do the best job, researching all of these colleges that I was visiting. And it ended up being the best place for me because I got there and I looked around and there's a TV station and there's a radio station and there's newscasts. And there were all of these just incredible opportunities to a college freshman. And I was able to kind of get my foot in the door right away. And it was my dumb luck that I ended up in the right place. And it was pretty much just a great experience from day one.
And we sent you out as an announcer doing all types of things. Football, we did basketball. I don't know if you did. Can you talk a little bit about your experiences of what you remember from announcing and some of those sort of trips and things that you were doing?
Sure. So the first game I ever did, it was a men's basketball game against Southeast Missouri State. It was my freshman year. And at that point, I'd only been at Western for a couple months. I didn't really know anybody. I didn't know, all these students are setting up and all of these other people are just around Western Hall. I had no idea who anybody was. There were three of us on the broadcast, and I don't even remember the names of the other two guys. I knew that they were older. I certainly had never met them, but once we got started and I got over the nerves of being on camera for just a couple of seconds, it was great. I felt comfortable and confident, and it kind of was my launching point. I started doing football my sophomore year, which would have been the fall of 2003. And that was a very eye-opening experience because I still didn't really understand the scope of the position of what I would be doing. I knew I'd be calling home games and that they would be on Channel 3, tape delayed. And that was the year Western had a really good football team.
Yeah.
They were the number one team in what was then Division I AA, which is now FCS. But they had gone to the playoffs the year before. They had all these players coming back. They were really good, and they were going to play at LSU. And this was the year that LSU won the national title. And I remember, Buzz, you telling me, you're going. The game's at LSU, and Bryan, you're going. And I thought, really? Like, all the way to Louisiana? Like, that's what we do around here? And the answer was yes. And I said, well, how do I get there? And you said, well, you go with the team on the plane. And, again, it was just kind of me being a little bit naive that I didn't understand that these opportunities were just right in front of me. And we went to LSU, and I got to go, the staff, the athletic staff, and a bunch of students went down to Bourbon Street the night before. And here I am, 19 years old, in this major tourist attraction. These are almost like once in a lifetime experiences. And that year I got to go to Eastern Michigan, a game that Western won. They played very well at LSU. They did not win that night, but I just got to go to all of these amazing places. They won a playoff game in double overtime on a blocked field goal at Montana.
Yeah.
In front of 20,000, just crazy passionate fans for Montana. You don't really get many opportunities to go to Montana. And, I'll never forget that trip. My junior year, the Western played at Nebraska. We traveled to Texas to see Stephen F. Austin, which, my first time going to Texas. The first time I ever flew in an airplane was my sophomore year going to Eastern Michigan. So the opportunities, like I said, very early on were just incredible. And I couldn't believe it until I was sitting on the plane on my way to these games with the team. And the team, like I said, was very good. And it was a great introduction to being around college athletics.
Yeah, because what I really appreciated about all that is it helped shape our young people into the idea that they were professionals, that they were representing not only the university, but our department. And I always appreciated how the coaches responded to all of you, because I think Coach Patterson he was a terrific influence on our young people. He always treated everyone with such respect. It didn't matter if you were 19 years old, and a sophomore or junior. You know, he still treated you as a professional.
Yeah, Coach Patterson, again, you know, you're in this eye-opening moment where, again, you're just a college student, and here you are with the head coach of a college football team who had spent, you know, all this time at Iowa and been a lot of places and seen a lot of things. And he wanted to come in and help. He wanted to come in and make sure that we had what we needed. And we worked a lot with the football team, providing what they called hit tapes, which basically once a week, like before kickoff, and I don't know if it was 5 minutes or 2 hours before the start of the game, the football team would get pumped up by watching these highlight tapes from the week before, and we put them together. So he would always, you know, he cared obviously what they looked like, and he was always so helpful. And I'll just never remember a guy that held his position taking the time. You know, I'll never forget him taking the time to make sure we had what we needed, and that we felt appreciated. You know, my senior year, he invited me to the team banquet in the ballroom at the Union, and recognized me in front of the entire program. And those are things that someone in that position doesn't necessarily have to do. So it was a great experience, and I was always appreciative of Coach Patterson.
Now, one of the things during your career, you were teamed up with Mike Kirchhoff, as you were both a broadcast team quite often. So tell us what it was like working with Mike Kirchhoff.
I can only assume he's going to watch this relatively soon.
I hope so.
You know, Mike is an extremely creative guy. He is always one step ahead, I think, of what is a trend, what is the next come. I remember the first person that ever told me about a podcast in 2005 was Mike Kirchhoff. But, you know, Mike and I spent a lot of time together at Western, and we did a lot together with broadcasting. We traveled together to football games our senior year, which would have been the fall of 2005. But one of the best ideas that Mike ever had, maybe ever in his life, was to do this PSA for our women's basketball program. We had a really outstanding player, Zane Tilane, who was 6'7", was, you know, the conference player of the year. She ended up being drafted into the WNBA, and she's very tall. She was 6'7", taller than us. And Mike, he had this idea to go to Walmart and do this Sports Center style PSA where he and I just couldn't reach this item on a tall shelf. And we asked Zane to do it, to participate in this PSA. And she did. She was a great sport. And she basically comes by in full uniform, reaches up to the shelf, and casually hands us this basketball. And you know, looking back, and especially having been in sports information and now in administration, we didn't ask anybody. We didn't, you know, we didn't have permission. There was no paperwork. We just walked into Walmart in our shirts and ties with a women's basketball player in full uniform, big camera and tripod, and we did it. And it was great. And it turned out well. And that is probably to this day. And I know Mike's done a lot of things. You know, now he's in Milwaukee on the morning show, but that might have been the best idea that Mike ever had. He was certainly the brains of the operation in terms of that idea. But Zane was great. It all turned out great, and you know, it was a memorable experience for sure.
Yeah, I still like to show that promo to my students, by the way, because of the creativity end of that and the acting, which I think you probably could have gone into acting, Bryan. If you haven't done community theater, you may consider that.
You know, it might have all been in one take too, Buzz. I don't even know if we had to do it more than once.
And just another note, when a few years ago, I saw Zani Talani at a homecoming, she came back, and I asked her if she remembered it, and she did. She remembered it fondly, doing that.
You know, it could have been very easy for her to just tell us no. You know, she's busy. This is silly. for her to go along with it and to do such a good job, it was great. And I'm glad that she remembers, because for me, it was very memorable.
So let's kind of talk about some more WIU. What else do you remember being involved with, or other people at WIU while you were here?
The big thing for me was the TV play-by-play. Obviously I got to do 4 years of basketball. My sophomore year, I got to the women's basketball team was outstanding all 4 years. I was at Western, which would have been from 02 to 06. I think they won what was then the Mid-Continent Conference all 4 years. So the women's program was very strong. And my sophomore year, the conference tournament was in Kansas City. I remember busing with the team for the games in Kemper Arena. Kemper Arena is a pretty major facility, to be in a venue like that, calling a college basketball game courtside. I think we were live on the radio station for those games. That was a great experience. We got to do baseball and softball games. I think the baseball field was renovated. When I was at Western, they built a beautiful new press box, and we were one of the first groups to get to be in the press box of the baseball facility. But really, Buzz, I just remember spending so much time in the building, editing, preparing, talking about the upcoming events, reliving things that had already happened. There was a small, group of students that we were just up there all the time. It was very strange to me that the building had no windows. And that is one of the things I remember, is that you could have, you go in and it's daylight, and you come out and it's dark, and, it's just, you kind of lose track of time. It's like being inside a casino. But no, I mean, Mike Kirchhoff was obviously someone I worked with a lot. Denise Hanitka, Eric Mumbauer, Scott DeHaan. We all had different interests. Scott and Eric were very interested on the radio side. But just having all of these opportunities to do a lot of different things, obviously my passion was play-by-play, but I was also able to be an anchor on the afternoon newscast one day a week. I was also the sports director at the radio station my senior year. We got to do talk radio for an hour in the afternoon, where we would just talk about Western sports. We would talk about Cubs, White Sox, Cardinals, the Bears. There was just the thing that was so incredible to me was just the level of opportunity. If we wanted to do it, we could present it to you, or we could present it to Sharon Evans or whatever. And a lot of times we got the opportunity to run with it. And I'm not sure if there's a lot of schools that opportunity exists. I'm not sure if there's a lot of schools where that infrastructure is in place, where we want to do this show live on the radio and you're able to do it. So I just remember spending a lot of time in that building. I remember having a lot of different opportunities, and it was a lot of fun. I remember after newscasts, sometimes they would go well and sometimes they would not. There's obviously a long list of potential pitfalls when you're doing a live newscast. And I always remember Sharon Evans coming in and saying, "How'd we do? How'd we do?" after every newscast. And sometimes the answer was great and sometimes it wasn't. But, we all cared, and we all wanted it to be perfect. And it was just a really cool experience, top to bottom.
Absolutely. And before your career was over, you got to do an internship, and you did it with the Peoria Chiefs. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So the Chiefs, probably the best summer of my life, one of the best summers of my life. The summer before my senior year, which would have been 2005, I wanted to do an internship. I needed to do an internship. I wasn't doing anything all that meaningful in the summertime anyway. I had a connection with a person that was in ticket sales with the Peoria Chiefs, which is a Class A minor league affiliate at that time of the Cubs. I was able to get my foot in the door and interview. My goal for the internship was to do more on-air play-by-play. At the time, they were on commercial radio at the time in Peoria. They play 140 games, all of them broadcast. And I got hired. A guy by the name of Nathan Believa, who ended up doing 18 seasons with the Chiefs, hired me with the Chiefs. And he was one of my first mentors in the sports communications world. And when I got to the Chiefs, I didn't get on air immediately, but basically the thing that I had to learn very quickly is that a big part of this internship was writing, being on the media side, getting press releases out on the website. We still faxed them to the local media at the time. And I did the game recaps. So we had a home game and we beat Kane County 7-4. And my job, as soon as the final out was recorded, was to get started on a recap. And Nathan would always do a great job giving me feedback. He had the red pen and the whole 9 yards where he would help me avoid mistakes. And when I did something well, he would nudge me in that direction more often. And I will tell you, the first time, Buzz, I ever got on air with the Chiefs would do their in-stadium pregame show on the field, and they would simulcast it on the radio. So it was the pregame show in the stadium, it was the pregame show on the radio, and they would have a really long commercial break right before the start of the game to give Nathan time to get from the field back up to the press box. So like a 4-minute break. It was a really long break. And the first couple homestands, he would always make it back in time. And I was always there just in case to take the baton if he didn't make it. And it probably was my 10th or 11th home game. It was still early in the year, and the break was over, and the music was coming back, and he was nowhere to be found. So my options at that point were to just go or to let there be dead air. And I had been in broadcasting long enough as a student to know that dead air was probably not the choice. So I just went. I took off. The game was still a couple minutes away, but I just kind of took off as if I had done it a million times. And I filled a couple minutes. I went through the starting lineups again and kind of gave my own version of a preview of the game. And all the while, Nathan was just standing on the other side of the wall. He made up his mind ahead of time that was going to be the night that I got to finally go on air, and it was fine. I didn't crash the plane. And I think that once he knew that I was capable, I obviously got lots of opportunities from that point forward. But there are those sink or swim moments, I think, in broadcasting, and he was very, very gracious in that he didn't let me think about it too much. I had about 5 seconds to make the decision, but it was a great summer. The Chiefs hosted the Midwest League All-Star Game that year, which was a huge event, sold out game at the stadium downtown in Peoria. As I mentioned, they were affiliated with the Cubs. So there was a couple of injuries that year with the Cubs. Nomar Garciaparra came to Peoria in July to do some rehab appearances, which was just total hysteria. The place was sold out. The Chicago sports media came down, everyone, they came down to cover the two games. It rained one of the games, so there was a doubleheader. And it was like, it was wow. Like this is what it's like. This is, I know that I'm in Peoria and this is Class A, but this is what the big leagues would be like. Kerry Wood came down to do the same thing later in the year. And, it was an amazing experience right before my senior year. And it really kind of reaffirmed that athletics and the sports world is where I wanted to be.
So when you graduated, how did you get involved in sports information? Because you got your first start at Bradley.
Yeah, so I graduated in 2006, and I kind of spun my wheels for about a year. I really wanted to pursue the minor league baseball path, but the reality is it's not a very high-paying industry, and the demand is extraordinary. There were a lot of people like me that wanted to do it. I applied everywhere. I mean, AAA, rookie league, it didn't matter where it was. It didn't matter what league. I sent my tape everywhere. And the first call back I got was from the Daytona Cubs, which ironically was the team that was one step ahead of Peoria. So I had some connections, and I had Nathan, look into it for me. And we did a phone interview, and they said, well, this is our number 2. This job is for our number 2 broadcaster. The salary was not enough to move to Daytona Beach, Florida, at least for me personally. And they also said, well, this is the salary, but only if you if you do all of these other things, and, we may need you to do some mascot appearances in the wintertime. And it just, long story short, it just never came together for me.
Yeah.
And, the following spring, the baseball season started, all the roles were filled throughout minor league baseball. And again, I was fortunate enough in Central Illinois to have a connection. My grandfather is in the Hall of Fame at Bradley. He played football in the 40s. He knew people at Bradley. There was a sports information internship available in the fall of 2007. My connections got my foot in the door. I interviewed at Bradley, and obviously with all of my experience at Western and my recent experience at the Chiefs, they hired me, and it was more of the same, where I did a lot of writing. I learned how to write a tennis press release. I learned how to cover a cross-country meet. It really just continued to kind of broaden my horizons and my opportunities to where now I'm in Division I athletics. Now I'm on the bus with a Division I basketball team. I still got to do a little bit of broadcasting type stuff. We live streamed all of our games. I got to do a little bit of play-by-play at Bradley. In 2007, the Bradley soccer team went to the Elite Eight of the NCAA tournament. So again, I'm on a chartered flight to Maryland, wow, where Bradley scored twice in the last 3 minutes and won the game in double overtime in one of the most dramatic moments in the history of the program. And I was there. And so again, it just kind of continued to, evolve my skill set and what I was able to do. I actually did the Bradley internship twice. It was a 10-month internship. It ended in the spring of 2008. They invited me to come back in the fall of 2008. They gave me more to do. They reassigned me to where, I did all of the soccer games at that point. And, soccer is obviously not the most popular NCAA sport, but at Bradley, there's no football. Soccer is the main event in the fall. So to be put in charge of that program and to do all of the sports information responsibilities, it was another great experience. And it took me, I did it for 22 months at Bradley. I was able to live at home, to kind of keep my student loan payments going out the door. But it was another just really great experience with just more and more to do.
And all this helps prepare you for Eureka College, which is what a blessing. I mean, can you talk about how that door opened up for you?
Sure. So once again, this is the second time I've had an internship end, and I'm just throwing my resume everywhere. And basically, in the top levels of Division I in sports information, a lot of times, these BCS level schools just have armies of graduate assistants. And when I say armies, I mean, they may, an LSU may have a dozen people in their sports information office. They may have 5 or 6 full-time and 5 or 6 graduate assistants. It's a tough business to break into. As luck would have it, a tiny little D3 school right down the road from my home had an opening. And I got an interview and I was hired. And in the fall of 2009, I had my first full-time job at Eureka College. At the time we had 18 sports, and I was a one-man shop. I did it all. I had a little bit of help from undergraduates, but I spent a lot of nights and weekends at Eureka, where I still do. But the guy that hired me was a guy named Bryan, who is a great college administrator. He has also been a lot of places. He was the AD for a time at South Carolina State. He was the AD for a time at Grambling. He's now at an institution, I think it's called Edward Waters College in Florida, an NAIA school. But he gave me my first full-time break, and it got my foot in the door at Eureka. And I was able, when you're a one-man shop, you pretty much get to do whatever you want in terms of, how you want to structure your office, how you want to structure your press releases. Social media was already in place at that time, but it really kind of took off as a vehicle for communication for schools like Eureka, where I may not be able to get us 30 seconds on the news on a Tuesday night if I'm competing with Bradley, if I'm competing with Illinois State or Illinois Wesleyan or the Peoria Chiefs. So having, creating our athletics website, creating our presence on social media, really, we kind of had our own media outlet at that point. And it really took off for us. The alumni base at Eureka, for us being such a small school, is very passionate and involved. And it's just been a great fit for me. I met my wife at Eureka. I'm still here, 12 years later, obviously in a much expanded role at this point, but we've come a long way. We've spent millions of dollars renovating our athletics facilities. We have a brand new arena downstairs from my office here. We turfed the football field with lights, where we now have night games. For a school our size to have 3,500 people to a home D3 football game, it's just an incredible environment, and I'm very blessed and fortunate to be where I'm at.
Oh, absolutely. So I think that I think my question is, what's it like to be an athletic director? I mean, it's to be somebody that is in charge of everything.
It's great. It's a short answer. It's
Okay.
great. It's different. The funny thing is when you're the sports information director, you're just laser focused on sports,
Right.
stats, press releases, pictures. I mean, everything is about the action. But as you become an administrator, you take a big step back, and now it's a different focus. So I'm still at all the events. I still have, a strong relationship with our current sports information director. We work together very well, but it's different. You have budgetary responsibilities, you have personnel responsibilities. My boss is the college president, which is a great thing because it's a direct line of communication with campus leadership, and you don't get that when you're the sports information director. But a lot of times it feels like a game of whack-a-mole. There's always something that pops up. The big challenge this year has been COVID testing. To participate in athletics at the NCAA level, there's a pretty high bar to clear in terms of COVID testing. Our student athletes and coaches have been great. We have a partnership with Shield, Illinois at the U of I that comes to our campus several days a week and administers the tests, and keeping track of making sure that everybody's taken the tests, that nobody overslept, making sure we're in compliance not only with that, but with other NCAA regulations. There's a lot going on. There's fundraising responsibilities, but to be able to do it here with the staff and faculty that we have and the people that I have known for a long time, there's a great comfort level, and it's been a great place to learn. I'm in year 3 now, so I'm not going to say that I know everything and I've crossed every bridge and there's nothing that can happen now that would surprise me, because that's not true. There are things that can always surprise you, but it's fun to be in this position of influence. I still get to edit video from time to time, but it's certainly I'm happy where I am, but it's certainly been quite the path from 2006.
Yeah, we are very parallel in our careers, because I was the same way with sports broadcasting when I was teaching, and then I got into the administrative side and felt the same way. I'm like, well, this is different, but it's enjoyable. It's a different way to grow, I think, and I think that's a great opportunity for you, because to see you excel in that way, and to see, again, I think Eureka is a wonderful place, and it must be filled with good people.
It is. It's very unique just because of our size. One of the things that I enjoyed so much about Western, and I mentioned it already before, was having the access, having the opportunity to walk into your office, Buzz, and say, hey, we want to do this weekend. And more often than not, we were afforded those opportunities. Eureka is the same way, almost out of necessity. We have a lot of students that help us run our events. And 2 years ago, I had a student walk into my office that was interested in photography, and she really wanted to take pictures at sporting events. And as luck would have it, we really need people to take pictures at our sporting events. So she, for more than 2 years, she was our primary student athletics photographer. She obviously gave us what we needed in terms of the photos, but it allowed her to get all of this experience. And at a place like Eureka, that is everywhere. We're so small that the opportunity exists to approach just about anybody on campus at any time. And I think Our students take advantage of that. I think they understand that. I think they come to Eureka for that reason. If you go to a major public university with 50,000 students, you just can't walk into anybody's office on a Tuesday afternoon. So it's a very unique setting for us, and I love it. I think that it's great for our students. It was great for me when I was at Western to have those same opportunities within the broadcasting department, and I don't know how you would do it any other way, to be truthful. So it is a special place for sure.
Well, let's talk about some of the recommendations you might have for current students, because I think I have an idea that you're going to talk about the importance of writing, because and it's something I echo all the time in my classes still, but no matter what you're going to do in life, the writing skill is going to take you there.
Yeah, I mean, it was an eye-opening moment for me with the Chiefs in 2005, where I just thought I was going to strut in there and just be a broadcaster.
Yeah.
And I did get those opportunities, but as I said, with Nathan, he basically said, "Hey, it was like my first day, and it was March, and we were getting information on who was going to be on the roster, who the Cubs were sending to Peoria." He said, "Hey, you need to get started on this. You need to put this together and go." And my minor at Western was journalism, so I wasn't totally blind going into the situation, but it was a very quick understanding. Yes, I'm going to have to write at this internship, and my recommendation is exactly what you said, Buzz. Is you're going to have to get involved in a lot of different things as quickly as possible, and having the ability to write, to write a script for a newscast. Write a script for a commercial, write a press release. It is not easy, and it's not something that you can just roll out of bed and do without any practice or any education or any opportunities at an internship. Being involved is important, and that was far and away the most critical piece for me to get where I am now, is being able to write, for sure.
Well, Bryan, it's been such a great time to catch up with you, and I can tell you, as I said, when you were an undergrad and working so many different games, I can't tell you how happy I am for you, because you've turned into such, not only I think a great leader for your, what you're doing, just all around, just wonderful. It's makes us all proud here at WIU for your success.
Well, I appreciate it very much, Buzz. It's very nice of you to say that. I was lucky, like I said, it was dumb luck for me to get to Western. It's just where I ended up. I had some friends that went with me. I didn't want to move too far away. And it did not take me long to discover that I was in the perfect place. And I treasure all of the memories. I wouldn't change anything, but it was a lot of fun, and I appreciate the kind words, and I wouldn't change a thing.
That's great. Well, thanks again for being on the podcast, and thanks for all of you for watching and listening on the podcast, all the viewers out there. And just a reminder, if you have somebody that you want to encourage to be on the podcast, you can reach out to me. If somebody wants to volunteer, please reach out to me. I would love to have somebody on and be able to catch up on them. So make sure to join me again for next week when we can join another alumnus from this great university. Until then, stay safe, take care, and God bless.